Before we start this video, a large thank you to Weeblet, Jax, Artem, 6666, Lucas, Keegan, and Philip for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And an immense thank you to Halo Burner for their continued support to the channel this month on Patreon. As always, it is greatly appreciated, my friend, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello, gentlemen. Today we are going to cover recovering ruins and reviving your character. So, I've used this set of particles before in the video. It's by JMO Assets, I believe. It's called Cartoon Effects Remastered. It's free. So I'm actually going to grab this water splash effect and edit it a little bit. And we're going to use this as our, I'm going to call it a dead spot. It's like the blood pool that appears when you die in Elden Ring. Dark Souls has it too. There's souls in Dark Souls floating above it. But we're going to use this as a spot to recover our ruins. So this is going to spawn when you die. And if you leave the game, it'll pop back into the world, provided you haven't died again. So what I'm going to do here now is basically go to this little prefab, and then we're just going to make sure it's around the size of the player. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to add something to it, a script here. So I'm going to call this pickup ruins interactable, and we can start with that. So it's going to be an interactable script, so it's going to derive from our interactables. So I'm going to go up here, put in my namespace SG. Delete the start and update functionality as is per tradition, and I apologize if I sound very drained today. I'm running on like 4 hours of sleep. So I'll make this derive from interactable. We're going to override our interactable function here. We're also going to make a public int for the ruin count. So when you kick it, you're going to put the ruins that you had based on your character onto this interactable. So we can get rid of base interactable. We don't need to call that really unless you want to for saving the game or whatever, if you have that on your base class. But I'm just going to say player.playerStatsManager.add ruins, and then we're going to pass the ruin count. So this is as if you picked it up, basically. And then, of course, we can just destroy this game object. Now, if you want to do something fancy, like make the particles fade away, do this via a coroutine and then destroy it. I'm just going to destroy it for now, but I encourage you to do something cooler than that if you want. Now, I am going to save this as a prefab. I'm going to call it dead spot. So every time I say dead spot from now on, I'm referring to this pool that spawns when your character gets 86'd. So let's go over to the world character effects manager. I'm going to make a public game object dead spot VFX. So we're going to use this basically just to store there so I can instantiate it from that world character effects manager when your character dies. So let's jump over to the world character effects manager's prefab, and let's go ahead and put in our newly created dead spot effects under that variable. Next, let's go to the character save data where we save everything for our character. And let's make a header here, and I'm going to call this dead spot. Now under the header, we need a few things. We need the ruin count. We need to know if there is a dead spot, and we need to know the position of the dead spot. So defaultly, there is no dead spot, so we're going to say has dead spot is equal to false. We don't get one until your character dies for the first time. Then we're going to say public float dead spot position X. Do the same thing then for dead spot position Y and Z. So just copy and paste that 3 times. Change X, Y, and Z. And finally, we're going to make an int for the dead spot ruin count. And defaultly also that is at 0. So over here now on the pick up ruins interactable, which honestly you could call dead spot interactable if you want to, just to keep the naming consistent. We're going to say world save game manager.instance.current-character.hasDeadSpot equals false after you interact with it, because of course you're going to destroy it and then reset the dead spot. Now, over here on the player manager, let's go to the player network manager instead, because we're going to use onIsDeadChanged. So we're going to override onIsDeadChanged from the character network manager, its base class. And we're going to call the base effect of onIsDeadChanged, but we're going to do something else afterwards too, right below here, and we're going to create our dead spot. So we're going to simply say, if the player is dead, and obviously we want to create this spot. Now, if you already have the spot created, you actually want to destroy it, but we'll get to that later. For now, let's just create the spot initially first. So we're going to say world save game manager.instance.current-character-data.hasDeadSpot is equal to true. So we're going to set, okay, we do have a dead spot, and then we're going to instantiate the dead spot effects. So we can do that by making a game object variable locally. I'm going to call it dead spot effects. And then we can say instantiate world character effects manager.instance.deadspot VFX. That's the variable. Then we can set the position of it by having a local vector3 position variable called dead spot position. We can equal that to where we died, which is our player's transform.position. And then we can set the dead spot VFX transform.position to that position, effectively moving it right to where we died. Next, let's make a pickup ruins interactable local variable here. Call it pickup ruins. And I'm just going to say this is equal to dead spot effects, as in the game object we just instantiated, dot get component pickup ruins interactable. And then we're going to say pickup ruins dot ruin count is equal to whatever ruin count we just had when we died. So we also need to subtract these ruins. But now here's the tricky part, because if we save the game and load into the game again later and recreate this dead spot, we don't want to subtract the ruins again because we've already done it once when we died. But we will get to that in a moment as well. For now, we're just going to say that the ruin count in the world save manager current character save data is the ruins that we had when we died. So we'll say pickup ruins.ruin count because we just assigned that from our character. We will say that we have a dead spot is equal to true, and then we will set the current character save data dead spot position x, y, and z to the dead spot position .x, .y, and .z. That dead spot position local variable up there that we just created, the vector 3. All right, cool. That's looking good so far, but we're not done. We got to make a few adjustments to this. We got to call it in a couple places. So let's go over to the player stats manager. Now, you could just make another function here for remove all ruins or clear ruins if you want to do it a little bit differently. Just like this, you could say, your ruins is equal to 0. You could set the ruin count to 0, or you could do it instantly by referencing the text component on the player UI HUD. So multiple ways to do this, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm actually going to erase this and use add ruins, but we're going to add a negative value. We're simply going to add the inverse or the negative value of what the player has right now. So if you have 500 ruins, we're going to add minus 500. And we're just going to do that by saying add ruins, and we're going to put a minus in front of it. But this will look kind of weird because it'll say plus minus 500. So we don't want that to come up in our UI because it looks kind of ugly. But there's an easy way to fix that. Go over to your player UI HUD manager, and down where we add the ruins, what you want to do is make a check to see if the number is positive. So where it says wait, then update ruin count, we're going to say if ruins to add is greater than 0 or greater than or equal to, you could say, I suppose, just in case you pick up nothing, we'll just say plus 0. Then we're going to do what we did normally. Otherwise, we're going to say minus instead, and we're not going to minus ruins to add because that would be minus 500. We want to make that number just the number, and we do this by saying mathf.abs as an absolute. And all that does basically, to put it very simply, is if you have a minus 500, it's just going to say 500. It's going to give you the absolute number without that minus in front of it. So that will look nicer in the UI. Now we're just going to go to the player manager. And I think we can actually create the blood spot here on load character. Maybe not though, actually, because this might load before we actually get into the scene, in which case the dead spot will actually instantiate in the UI scene or the main menu scene, but we'll try this first. So we're going to say if we have a dead spot when we load the game, we want to create a dead spot. Now, instead of writing all this code again, let's copy all of this from here, and we're going to paste it in a new function under the player combat manager, because I think that makes the most sense. We're going to make one for creating a dead spot. So public void create dead spot. And then we're just going to, of course, what do we need here? So we have a position and a ruin count. So let's call this over here now under the player manager.load character data. We'll call player combat manager.create dead spot. And then under the network manager, you do the same thing. But first, let's go over here and see. We need a vector 3 for the position of the dead spot. And we need a ruin count, of course. So an int for a ruin count. We need to know that if we're subtracting the ruins in the player or if we've already done that. But we'll get to that in a second too. So over here on the network manager, player.player combat manager, create dead spot. And we're going to pass the player's position. And then we're going to pass the ruins that the player had on them at the time when they died. Because if we're calling on is dead change, it means the player just died. You're not loading the game. So this just happened. Now, if we're over here and we're loading the game, we don't want to subtract the ruins again because we already did that when we died before in our previous game. We're just loading where we left off last time. So you don't want to go into negative ruin values. So I'm going to show you how we're going to adjust to that. It's going to be very simple. But first, let's get the dead spot position by creating a new vector 3 so we can make a local variable for that. And we're going to reference the current character data, dead spot position X, Y, and Z. And then in the player combat manager, we do .create dead spot, we pass the dead spot position, and we pass the current character data .dead spot ruin count. Now, let's go over here and we're just going to do a check real fast. So we have the position, that's cool. Let's use the position here and let's change the ruin count here to, instead of referencing the player stats manager, we're going to reference the ruins that we pass because this function is being called in a couple of places now. So pickup_ruins.ruin count becomes ruin count, the one that we pass in here. And now we're only going to subtract those ruins if bool, by default, we're going to say, you don't have to pass a default value if you don't want to, but I'm going to. I'm going to say remove player's ruins, and I'm going to set mine to true. So if you don't set this to false, it's going to default to true, in which case it's going to subtract your character's ruins and make them 0. But you don't want to do this when you load the game, because you've already subtracted them, as I said before in the previous game. Now, lastly, down here, when you're adjusting your dead spot position, pass the position, and just add that to your character save data. And now over here, when we load the game, we don't want to subtract the ruins, so we're going to say false. And since it's defaultly true, it's going to pass true on the onIsDead change in the player network manager, and then it will do that there. So again, I'll make a comment. This is very clear. We don't remove the player's ruins if we're loading the game, because if we're loading the game, it implies we died in the last game where our ruins were already subtracted. So all we want to do is instantiate the dead spot again, and then put the ruins that we had before on it. All right. Now, let's test this. So create dead spot. You can see here again, this is the check. It's defaultly true. And this is where we're moving it. So if we go into the game here now, I'm just going to actually first set this to an interactable layer on my dead spot. I'd actually didn't add a collider to it too. So make sure you add some kind of collider. I'm using a sphere. So you can actually interact with this object. And I'm going to override my prefab and save that before I forget. So let's do that. All right, cool. And back over here to the player comment manager before I forget also. If you're not the host, don't do this. So we're just going to do a return if the player is not the host. Sorry, that's not is not owner. It should be is not host, because you don't want to attempt to instantiate a network object. Our interactable object, by the way, at least mine is a network object. So we should also do deadspot effects.getComponent network object.spawn. I'm doing this because I don't think you can move the position of a network object until it's spawned. I could be mistaken in my assumption there, but I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, you cannot do that. So let's spawn that right now. Now, if I go into the game here, I'm going to go to my player network manager, and I'm just going to go down to my health and set it to 0, which should kill me. Yes, it does. And there is the dead spot. Very cool. Now, if I go into my scene view and click that, it should have my ruins at the time, which I believe was just 104, if I saw that correctly. I don't remember for sure, though, if I'm being honest. Let's click it. Yes, it's 104. Excellent. So I'm just realizing now we don't actually revive. Did I seriously go this whole series right now and not revive us? Save the game just to make sure. Yeah, wow, I didn't. Look at that. So process death event coroutine. I guess I totally forgot to do that. So under the world game session manager here, we can make a revive players, or I'm thinking Nephilim and Elden Ring, when you die as the host, it just kicks everybody and you revive the host. So we'll do that. So we're going to revive the host. So right here is just kick non-host players and the game the host dies to do. We'll get to that later. Let's make sure this works first. So we're going to call world game session manager.instance.revive host. And we need to call that before we return process death event coroutine, like the base. I'm actually going to rename that to wait, then revive host. And in the future, very near future, we're going to do a cool little, like basically restore all NPCs, but we're going to do it in a way where we do it by area so it's not laggy. So for now, I'm not going to regenerate all of our NPCs. If you want to do that, this is the area you would do it, by the way. So I encourage you to do that. Actually, you should try that. It's a great learning experience. If you don't have it done already, revive your NPCs here. And then when I show you my way, if you like my way better, you can use my way. But under revive host, let's make a coroutine for revive host coroutine. Let's make a local coroutine variable so we're never running this more than once at a time. I think I just butchered the spelling on that. That's okay. If revival coroutine is not equal null, stop coroutine, revival coroutine. Revival coroutine is equal to start coroutine, revival coroutine, or revive host coroutine. This makes it so we're not trying to run this coroutine multiple times at once on accident. That would be very bad. Don't do that. We're going to pass a delay of, I'm just going to say 5 seconds arbitrarily so you can see the you died screen for a bit, make you kind of angry, like you want to throw your controller at the wall. And then we're going to say player UI manager.instance local player dot revive character. So after we revive the character, obviously you want to teleport to a site of grace. So to do save the last site of grace you visited, we're going to do that in a moment and TP there. But for now, just to make sure this works, I will go to world object manager.instance.sites of grace. I will get the first one, which is 0, and we're going to teleport to that site of grace. We should also activate our loading screen as well, because it will automatically deactivate when we're finished the teleportation. So we could say player UI manager.instance.player UI loading screen manager.activate loading screen. Now let's save that. And if we go back, am I missing something? No, let's go back to the game here. I have 500 ruins. You can see I just added them there, not in the UI because I just added them in the inspector. If I kill my character, boom, minus 500. Very cool. Now I should revive, hopefully. Yes, I did. And I bet this is not going to be spawned because Okay, wait, no, it spawned. All right, no, we're good. Plus 500, cool. I didn't put an interactable message for that, so I'm going to add a message to that right now. Right now you get nothing. So let's go to our dead spot, interactable message. I'm going to say pick up ruins. Actually, I want to say restore ruins. That sounds cooler. I can't remember if Elden Ring does a pop-up for this when you restore your ruins. I know Dark Souls does souls restored, but if you want to add a pop-up for that too, like the you died one, that would be a great place to do it right there. So let's kill our character one more time, and then let's go and save the game, and then we can try to load into the game and see if we have our blood spot. So I'm going to save, and then I'm going to get out of the game here. And if I come back, it's not there as I feared, because I think it loads in basically before we load the scene. So what we're going to do instead is take this code under your load character, and we're just going to make we're going to say using Unity Engine.scene management under the player combat manager. And we're going to check for an unseen changed here. On start, we're going to say, how do you type this again? I think it's scene manager. Yeah, scene manager dot, not unseen changed, scene, active scene changed. And hit tab twice after plus equals, and then it should auto-generate a function for you like this. Now, if you want to, you can check this function to make sure you're loading your world scene if you don't want to instantiate this dead spot in every scene. But that's okay. I'm not going to do the check because when we load into the world scene, it's going to destroy the one in the main scene anyway. So I'm just going to do it regardless for now. We're going to say world save game manager.instance. And we are going to just basically call the code here that we had under our loading character originally, but we're going to move it here. So we're just going to basically say if we have a dead spot, we're going to instantiate a dead spot position in our world. And again, if you want to check for a specific scene, you can do that right here. Okay, cool. So after we have the optionally checking for a scene here, like I said, it's pretty much the same. We're just changing it from where it was where you loaded our character because that did not work. And now we are going to actually go test it out. This is one of those things that I didn't actually have prepared ahead of time because I don't have this functionality in Nef because of the way my experience system works. So, also on destroy, override that and unsubscribe the event because that's what you're supposed to do. But yeah, I'm kind of just doing this as I'm going right now with you guys, and I think this is going to work pretty fine. Let's also make a variable for the last site of grace rest of that under our world save manager, or sorry, our current character data, just so we have that. I'm not forgetting about it. And then over here, when you rest, or sorry, when you revive the host, just teleport to the last site of grace. And you can do this by creating a function to look for one from the ID, or you can just do a for loop, go through all your sites of grace, and then basically when you find the one with an ID, teleport to that one. Now, it might be a good idea to just make sure if you can't find one to default to one, just in case, because you don't want to have your character be in an endless loop of never being able to respawn. So just food for thought. If you think there's any chance of you never having a site of grace because some stuff becomes unentangled, or a checkpoint rather, just always have a default checkpoint, like 0 or the first one. But we're just going to do the for loop now, check through this. We're going to say world object manager.instance, that's sites of grace. We're going to pass i.teleport to site of grace, and then we'll break the for loop because we found a site of grace. And we also need to save that last site of grace rest of that. So every time you interact with a site of grace, or even try to restore one, well, that will still be interacting, I suppose. You want to go ahead and save the site of grace's ID to the last one that you touched, which would be this one right here. So we're going to do that by saying world save game manager, because you don't need to save this on the player because we've just got it in the world save game manager. That's fine. .instance.current character data, last site of grace, rest of that equals, and you pass the site of grace ID just like that. And now we're good to go. So if we go back into the game here now, you can see my bloodstain is absolutely here, and I can touch that and get my ruins back, loading back in. So it now works. It loads into the world as it is supposed to. All right, there you go, guys. So now you have a way to load back into the world. I'm just going to kill my character to show you again just to make sure. And then if we go out of here, I'm going to come back to the site of grace. There we go. And if I turn around, of course, there is my runes again. So now we can revive, you can do all that stuff. And then you have a great place too to add in your logic for responding your AI. It's a great thing to do and experiment with if you haven't done that yet. We have a way to collect our runes on death. That will be it for me. Thank you very much for joining me, guys. I hope you all have a very, very lovely weekend. I hope you learned something. Thank you for tuning in. A special thank you to my patrons. I appreciate each and every one of you so much. Thank you to all the people who take the time to like and comment the video and share it around. You have my sincerest gratitude. I will see you guys next week.